Good afternoon and welcome to our wonderful audience as we cover operator insights, managing the realities of heavy vehicle speed. A warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today, and no doubt we've got quite an insightful presentation ahead, so I certainly won't keep you with the housekeeping items, but we will move through those quickly for those of you joining us for the first time. So my name is Angela Juhasz and I am the Webinar Program Coordinator here at ARB Group. Today I'll be offering technical support. Hopefully we won't need it, but I'll be here all the same to take your questions and pass them on to our moderator today. And speaking of our moderator, there he is, Mr. Jerome Karslick. Jerome is the National Road Safety Partnership Program Manager, which is funded by ARB Group, and he is taking over moderator duties today, which I am very excited to hand over that role to him. So welcome, Jerome, and thank you for joining me. Our webinar today will be approximately 60 minutes in duration. It does depend, ladies and gentlemen, on how many questions you all send through. So please do keep them coming through. Webinars work best when they're interactive. We are also recording today's session, and the recording will be made available to anyone interested on recapping. As I mentioned, webinars work best when they're interactive, so please don't be shy. If you have any questions, comments or feedback you'd like to shoot through to our presenters, or in fact to Jerome today, I will draw your attention to the questions box right there in your control panel. So please keep them coming. We'll make sure to answer as many, if not all of them, as we can in today's session. Our panellists today, we have Craig Guthrie, Shane Faulkner and Sean Maloney joining me in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane today, and it's such a great pleasure to have them not only here today, but thank them for preparing all of the materials in time for today's presentation. And over to you, Jerome. Tell us a little bit more about what we're covering today. Set the scene.
Thank you very much. But just first, before I delve into that, I just want to quickly give you a bit of an outline as to why this National Road Safety Partnership Program is doing this and why we're involved. Basically, we're a collaborative network established to support Australian business to develop a positive road safety culture. It's about saving lives without red tape. The program provides free networking, support, education to assist organisations in making road safety part of their organisational culture. Basically, we love and we aim to do things exactly like we're doing today. We're funded by New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, National Transport Commission and ARB. So thank you all very much for coming on board. And just now to set the scene as to why we're really delving into speed and heavy vehicles. Let's look at, so there's basically two parts I've broken this down to. When you think about it, the three guys we have today and all speed operators have to balance around these elements. There's the physical elements, and it's looking at, if you look at the road design, below ground, it's all based around heavy vehicles. Whereas the above ground component, the speed limits are all set for light vehicles. So it doesn't mean that because it says 60, 80, 90, 100, 110, that's what the heavy vehicle should be going at. Because basically, it's all about appropriate speed. So what's the safest speed that heavy vehicle should go at? Especially if you're bulk goods, commodities, and how you're shifting and changing the load, empty, and those sort of elements. The other part is when you hit hills and mass. Basically, the bigger you are, how are you going to factor in going down the hill in a safe manner and getting those right gears as you're moving along? And the other part is stopping distance. Basically, the bigger you are, the more room you need to stop. And sadly, that's one of the things a lot of light vehicle users just don't understand. A big truck can't stop on a dime. So they're the physical element. The other part is the regulatory compliance. Now, there's a plethora of these that they have to set about managing their system to. And look, this is just a short touch point. Heavy vehicle, national law, individual state traffic, dangerous goods legislation, occupational health and safety, and the list goes on. These are all the elements that these managers have to take into place when you're moving heavy goods from point A to point B. So it's a hell of a task. These three organisations have three people specifically for that, and it's teams supporting them. And then there's a lot of small, medium businesses out there, subcontractors and the like as well, which have to do this on their own. So it's a complex business, and that's why we thought we'd go ahead and get these guys as leaders in the area to talk about how they do it. So thank you very much for taking part in this.
Fantastic. So who's up first, Jerome?
First up, we have Craig Guthrie from Boral Logistics. So please, Craig, enlighten us on how you guys address speed, please.
Thanks, Jerome. So a little bit about Boral Logistics. At Boral Logistics, we deliver transport and logistics in ways that minimise the risks associated with safety, compliance and security of supply. We are part of the Boral Group, a multinational company with logistics businesses operating in each state and territory of Australia. We use state-of-the-art equipment and technologies. At all times we know what each vehicle is doing, and we manage the myriad of risk and compliance issues to very exacting standards. Our national fleet is one of Australia's largest. We deliver quarry and bulk products for Boral and other customers. We deliver bulk cement, lime and fly ash and bulk tanker products for Boral Cement, Sunstate Cement and other clients. Our bitumen tankers supply Boral asphalt plants around Australia. We operate a national logistics service business, managing the movement of palletised products for Boral and external clients. We have a large pool of over 500 hauliers and pre-qualified subcontract carriers, which provides us flexible capacity to meet changing customer needs. If you looked at our national fleet, we would do 520,000 loads per annum, 400,000 short-haul bulk loads, 80,000 long-haul bulk loads, and 40,000 long-haul palletised loads. So that's a considerable freight task that we undertake. Go to the next slide, please. So we're a diversified logistics service provider with three core pillars. So sourcing cartage capacity. Boral Logistics provides strategic sourcing for cartage services. We have a fleet comprised of company vehicles, dedicated hauliers and owner drivers, and deep relationships with a broad range of subcontractors. The second pillar is our logistics coordination and project management pillar, which is matching cartage capacity with transport demand in a way that optimises our logistics networks and optimises utilisation through multi-segment demand smoothing. We deliver a high-quality customer experience through focused fleet allocations, project and contract management. And so into our third pillar, customer service risk is managed by professional execution of the first two pillars, and our transport functional risk management through the management of our COR obligations, our maintenance management systems, our vehicle specification and our driver training programs. Go to the next one. And so we source and manage heavy vehicle on-road cartage across four main segments. So our tippers, which deliver sand, aggregates, asphalt hot mix, cement raw materials and gypsum. Our powder tankers, which deliver cement, fly ash and lime. Again, our dangerous goods vehicles delivering bitumen, and our national logistics business delivering timber, plasterboard, bricks, masonry and roof tiles. Our flexibility to source additional cartage capacity while retaining control of the associated compliance issues is a core competitive advantage for our business. We have hundreds of pre-qualified subcontract carriers, which enables us to draw on vehicles of all shapes and sizes as the needs arise. So for all of our obligations in terms of road transport compliance, we use a management system approach which runs through our business, and it's a core of our business. The first thing that we do is we select and engage the right drivers. So we do things like aptitude testing, pre-engagement driving assessments, pre-engagement screening. We then select the right drivers, and then we train and induct those drivers, and we verify that they're competent. So that's a fairly involved process. That induction and verification of competency is at a Cert 3 in road transport level to the Transport and Logistics Industry Skills Council. We have accountability built into our management system so that the drivers are accountable for their behaviour and their supervisors are accountable for their behaviour. We use a NAVAS structure and reporting systems, and we have a truck specification and asset management team. Those selecting, engaging and operating management parts of our management system approach means that we've got the right drivers in the right condition, in the right trucks, in the right condition on the roads, interacting with the general public. We use telematics for fleet monitoring, so fatigue, speed, mass and maintenance. We have internal audit procedures. I'm fortunate enough to have two full-time auditors employed. We have a NAVAS accreditation process, which means that we get externally audited. We also have ISO 9001 accreditation, which means internal audits and external audits. And we have systems where we verify that the work that's being undertaken in the other parts of it is actually bringing out one version of the truth. So our work diary pages, as an example, must match the tracking system, and we go through and make sure that those things happen on a very regular basis. So if we go to the next slide, please, Jerome. So if we're talking specifically about speed management, I believe the keys to success that we have is knowing how our telematics systems work. We also have very well-trained drivers who know how the systems work as well and know how to use the system and are verified as competent to use the system. We equip and support the operations, so the operations know how our systems work, the operations know how the management system structure works. When we get events that come from the telematics, we consistently analyse and interpret the events that come through. And we consistently follow up non-conformances. So if an event occurs in Dubbo, or it happens in Metro Sydney, or if it happens in Coffs Harbour, the information is analysed centrally and interpreted by the same people, regardless of where the truck is, and we consistently follow up the non-conformances, so the same outcome will occur for the driver for the same behaviour across our business. We record all of our corrective and preventive actions, and we regularly review our systems and processes. So that's what we do to make speed management work in our business. If we go to the next slide, please, Jerome. We happen to have an R model Mack, which is a 1986 model truck, and I took a photo of the dashboard just to show you the transition that we've made over the last 30 years. If we could have one click, please, Jerome. So you'll basically see that these are the speed control devices in our 1986 R model Mack. On the dashboard we have a round dial and a needle, which tells the driver how fast he's going, and then he has some pedals underneath the dashboard which will allow him to control the speed. If we fast forward to today, here's a new model Mack again, and if we have one more click, we'll see that we've got the same speed control device. We've got a dial on the dashboard with a needle that goes around and indicates a speed, and a couple of pedals underneath the dash, which work to control the speed. If we have one more click, we can see that on top of that, though, we've now got management in the truck. So about 8 years ago, Boral embarked on installing telematics devices in all of its trucks. And so we have the driver who now has the compliance manager, the field supervisor, and senior management all in the truck with him while he's driving along. And we have to make sure that the information that's being received on the dashboard and the one that's being received through the telematics device represent the same outcomes for the driver and the same amount of information. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the key issue when we are dealing with telematics and looking at the difference between the driver's version of the truth, which is the dial on the dashboard and moving with traffic and undulations on the road, and a GPS tracking system that's in the truck, is having faith in the system. The more faith that we have in the system that it's accurate and that it works, the less arguing about what a breach is or isn't we have. So by developing faith in the system and an understanding of how the system works, we're changing driver behaviour rather than arguing about accuracy, which leads to understanding things like H-stop, or horizontal dilution of position. So horizontal dilution of position is an accuracy measure for GPS tracking. And because we know what the H-stop values are for breaches in our system, our drivers know what they are, the management knows what they are, and they're widely published and we all agree and understand what they are. If we know what those H-stop values are, so the accuracy of the system for a breach to register, we know how accurate the signal is, and therefore we know how we can use that signal to manage the driver behaviour. So H-stop values sort of work backwards, so the lower the number, the better the H-stop. So if we have a H-stop of less than 1, that's ideal, that's as accurate as you can get. 1 to 2 is an excellent reading, 2 to 5 is just good, and anything over 5 I wouldn't really be using. So if we understand what the H-stops are and the drivers understand the H-stops, we understand that the GPS tracking is accurate. It's as accurate at less than 1 and between 1 and 2. It's accurate enough to manage driver behaviour on the road. If we go to the next slide. The other thing that we do, not just understanding how the system works and what information is being fed back to the driver and fed back to management, is that we give the drivers opportunities to change their behaviours. So you can see here in this schematic that, after 10 seconds, the driver will get a beep and a flashing light on the dashboard. After another 5 seconds, the same thing. So the driver has 6 warnings before an exception is generated in the system. So that allows that driver to change his behaviour before the event is registered. So if the driver knows how it works and we understand that it's accurate, the driver's been given the opportunity to change his behaviour. Again, we will generate a successful outcome in terms of making sure that our drivers are managing their speed when they're behind the wheel. So if we can go to the next one, Jerome. So in summary, again, the keys to success for speed management is knowing how your device works, train your drivers, equip and support the operations, consistently analyse and interpret the data, consistently follow up on non-conformances, record corrective and preventative actions, and regularly review the management system to see that it's working.
Thank you very much for that, Craig. Now, if everyone can send through questions, we'll hold some of them over to the very end, but I think we've just got a couple of nice specific ones which, if we would get you to quickly answer, if that's right, Craig, before we move on to our next presenter, which is Shane. There was 2 questions that came through. One is basically, what do Boral auditors audit from the telematics evidence, and where do your HDOP parameters come from?
Okay, so so our auditors actually audit our management systems. So they come back through and go through and see that events have occurred, and then that we followed up those events the way that they're supposed to be and how we're analysing it. So we say that an event occurs, a driver will get a written warning as an example. The auditors will go and look at the events that have occurred and then go and trace that down to find where the written warnings are in the system. And we can demonstrate that for every event that we have a corrective action. So that's the job in terms of the internal audit. Obviously they audit bigger parts of the management system, so the quality side of it as well, and the NAVAS side of it, but specifically for speed, they would chase that event through to the conclusion, preventative or corrective action. And the second question, sorry, Jerome?
Where do your HDOP parameters come from?
So the HDOP parameters will come from the telematics device that you have in your truck. So the telematics devices will have an MDT, a mobile data terminal, on the dashboard that the driver interacts with, and somewhere underneath the dash will be another device that's actually the computer or the brains inside there, and the HDOP settings will be in that device. So whoever's supplying your telematics solution will have HDOP parameters set up in that hardware.
Great. Thank you very much, Craig, for outlining that, and thank you very much, Claire, for those questions that came through. So yeah, we have a few others that have come through, and we'll hold them over. But next, and thank you again, Craig, for taking your time to present. Next, we'll be introducing our next presenter, which is Shane Falcon from Scott's Transport. Welcome, Shane.
Thanks, Jerome. Hello, everyone, and hope you're having a cooler afternoon than we are. At Scott Transport Industries, I'm the Group Safety and Compliance Manager. And as do Boral and Simons, we believe that operating safely and being 100% legally compliant is our #1 priority. So to do this, we need to have strong systems of management within our business. Within the legal compliance space, we believe that speed, along with fatigue, are the most critical areas that we need to manage within our business along the safety and compliance lines. So who are Scott's? I've taken the time to put a couple of points in there about Scott's. Scott's Transport Industries, as part of the group, Scott Group of companies, under AA Scott Proprietary Limited, Mount Gambier-based company. Within the Scott Group of companies, we have Scott Transport Industries, K&S, and Scott Corporation, and you can see on the slide the affiliates businesses within that area. AA Scott Proprietary Limited was established in 1956 in Mount Gambier, as I said, and if you're thinking 59 years ago, laws and regulations would have changed significantly, and there's been a considerable amount of improvement within the safety area within our industry over that time. It's our very important customers consist of blue chip customers, and they have an expectation that we will ensure that, we are operating legally and safely at all times. We operate in all states and territories across Australia, And we have two primary divisions, a general freight division, which is interstate line haul and local, and we have fuel tankers, which is interstate line haul and local. Our equipment to support our customers comprises of about 274 prime movers within the general and tankers divisions. We have about 940 pieces of trailing equipment, which consists of our trailers and dollies for road trains, and we have 23 light trucks for our local business. We have 451 full-time staff across the group, and we're supported by 140 subcontractors, which are all registered in our iPro Live system, which includes our tow operators as well. And to put the issue of speed into some sort of speed management perspective, our vehicles travel approximately 2.8 million kilometres per month, which equates to around 34 million kilometres per year. So with that distance, that gives a lot of opportunities for drivers to inadvertently speed, and we need to make sure that we prevent them from that happening or occurring. To monitor and action the incidents that do occur, we've established a safety management system we call SIMS, Scott's Incident Management System, and we need to know what's broken before we can fix it. So we collect the data, and we need to get this data so that we can understand the lay of the land out there. Our safety management system measures everything, and that allows us to record incidents across Scott's transport industries, such as motor vehicle incidents, right through to near misses and anything in between. This safety management system allows the safety and compliance team to look at incident trends within the motor vehicle incident area, safety incidents, penalties, complaints, and anything else that we're currently measuring. Things like corrective actions and where those corrective actions are at as well. Our SMS supports is supported by this data, and the data then allows us to look at initiatives to address those trends. And as you can see by the graph, back in 2012, we had a significant number of breaches issued to us by the regulator, and as you can see, up until this point in time, up until the 30th, up until end of last month, we'd had 14 notices issued. Our current focus is on speed as well as fatigue, because we believe both are connected rather than isolated. And so our focus is on those two areas. So for speed management incidents, these are breaches, as I said, that are issued to us by the regulators and issued to our vehicle and tow operators towing our trailers. Then we transfer them across to the appropriate driver, and we also record these notices on our 3-strike register. I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. We then also have the IVMS, in-vehicle monitoring system, detected breaches, which in our case is MT data. Any MT data over speeds are issued by the safety and compliance team under our driver behaviour policy. You'll notice on the graph as well that there was a bit of an increase in Zone 1 breaches for the period 13-14. That increase was due to a change in our level of measurement within our driver behaviour policy that saw Zone 1 breaches go from between 105 to 110, reduced to 100 to 105. And subsequently, as a result of that, with the inbuilt tolerances within these systems, that was a significant spike in over Zone 1 breaches. And as you can see from this year's results, we've reduced that considerably, and we will continue to do that as time progresses. Just for those that want to know, I'm sure you'll think of the question. Zone 1's 100 to 105, Zone 2 is 106 to 110, and Zone 3 is anything over 110. How do we manage speed? When Jerome asked me the question, I had to think about it. Managing speed as a third party can be a considerably hard job to do. When the driver's out driving the truck, he's his or her own person, and it's very hard to pull them back unless you've got some sort of strong systems in place. So how do we do that? We've introduced a couple of mechanisms to help support us doing that, one being the driver pre-departure briefing process, whereby any task that's about to be conducted, the ops staff must fully brief the driver prior to them departing. And we have a checklist that the ops staff must follow. And that briefing document basically outlines where, who, when, how, the route, the breakdown procedure, declarations and so on. And we emphasise their legal obligations such as you can't speed. We also issue all of our drivers that fall within the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal order a safe journey plan. Safe journey plans are issued by our dispatch clerks for the full journey. That includes a two-up driving requirement, signing off as a declaration they're fit for duty, and the route, the fatigue breaks that they need, approximate fatigue breaks they need to take, average speed for the journey, and an emphasis is also placed on the driver that under no circumstances are they to be directed to speed or breach fatigue laws. Drivers are reminded to drive to the conditions rather than the speed that's posted, and if they're tired or fatigued, to have the rest as required. We have the ability within our safe journey plans that drivers can amend their route dependent upon the circumstances. For example, roadworks, if the roadworks are hindering their progress, and they can make a note of that appropriately within the document. We also manage speed via our IVMS and our 24-hour call centre. Our 24/7 call centre is based in Laverton at our head office. The safety and compliance operations manager manages the MT data system centrally, and it's connected to our national control centre, who have access to the MT data system, as you can see by the photos in the slide. The only person that can validate a speed breach is the safety and compliance team. We've all been trained in the system and the intricacies of a IT system. As we know with all IT systems, they are not infallible to issues, and because of these issues that we want to make sure that those breaches are assessed and validated by the appropriately trained people, rather than in the previous was done by the depot manager or someone within operations. Once an exception is registered on the system, that breach is communicated directly to the driver once the exceptions are breached, and also the call centre and the safety ops manager and the managers of that particular driver. We ensure that we don't ring the driver whilst he's driving on the road, because that creates other issues around stress and panic and so forth, which affect fatigue. All speed exceptions will see the driver counselled and appropriately by the depot manager and recorded within our systems. We have a 3 strikes register. A 3 strikes register is maintained for not just speed, but complaints, penalty notices, fatigue breaches, and so on. On the 4th strike, that becomes a HR issue, and the driver is subsequently either terminated, depending upon the severity, retrained in between each of the strikes, and if it's deemed as an issue, then the appropriate steps are taken. We also have an obligation to ensure our subcontractors are legally compliant. We're introducing a revised terms and conditions contract with our subcontractors that will see them required to purchase an IT app for their phone, smartphone, and a couple of screenshots on the slide. And that app basically requires them to, they'll be issued a user name and password, and when they're working for us, they'll be required to log in, and once they've finished the work, log out. Whilst The app allows the the subcontractor, to connect to our master MT data system, so our control room and our safety people can also monitor the speed, location, route, and driver work hours of our subcontractors. Some of the key issues that we have within our business, the list is far and wide, but the ones I've picked out for this particular topic, subcontractors. We need to make sure our subcontractors are operating legally and appropriately, because at the end of the day they're carrying our customers' product, and that includes our tow operators. The first thing that anyone sees with a tow operator is not the tow operator, it's usually the trailer that's got our brand on the side of it. We need to look at speed zones, the condition of the roads. Drivers have a feeling that they need to make up time if they're stopped. That's far from the case. They need to make the appropriate notations in the safe journey plan, make the phone calls, and nothing more will be said. But road conditions, signs, and especially those variable signs do hinder our drivers' time and speed and fatigue. Speed versus management, including route compliance. We believe speed and fatigue are linked, as I've said already, and we always discuss the two together. Subsequently, we check both areas of our systems. We check our work diaries, as Boral said, that we check them against the drivers' work diaries, against their truck EMS. Using our MT data system, and we enter 100% of all work diaries into the system, but we validate 10% of the work diaries against the EMS, and any subsequent corrective actions that come out of that are registered and the appropriate steps taken. Our MT data is also set up and activated for electronic work diaries. Even though we still have to use the paper-based systems, we do use the EWD function. Finally, to engage our drivers and to make sure they're on board with these systems, we continually emphasise the benefits of driving compliantly and not speeding, and to manage their fatigue and take the appropriate rest when required through things like toolboxes, training sessions, monthly safety and compliance pamphlets, work health and safety committees, and etc. We have continually reinforced the need for speed compliance, and we need to ensure that they observe the highest standard. By no means do we tolerate non-compliance of speeding or fatigue breaches. We continually reinforce the need to speed compliance at all levels, and recently we ran a safety work at our Milpera depot, and the primary emphasis of the message was you as the driver are our number one asset, so we need to take care, or you need to take care of yourself as much as we take care of you. With that primary focus on emphasising, as I said, the speed and fatigue. So that's how Scott's tried to do it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shane. Once again, questions, shoot them on through. Paul, we had a good one from you. If you don't mind, I'll hold yours through to the end, because I think it's going to actually give some good conversation among all three of them, because I think all three of them will be able to touch on this sort of point. So now we've just heard from Shane down in Victoria. Next we'll bounce our way up to Queensland. And welcome, Sean. Look forward to hearing how Simon National Carriers goes about doing their elements of speed management. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sean Maloney. I'm the line haul manager at Simon's. We pride ourselves on operating at 100% compliant. The next few slides we're going to go through on our speed and road law infringement policy, speed analysis, a historical travel path, and how we manage our speeding trends. Next slide, please. A little bit of history about Simon's. We were officially incorporated in 1973. Our fleet consists of about 85 prime movers and 230 trailers, and then about 250 rail deck units. Our tasks range from triple road trains in remote areas right up to B-doubles running express up and down the east coast, so quite a variety there. Our focus is always on safety, and our prime movers are limited to 90 kilometres an hour. We constantly evolve to meet the changing needs of our customers. Next slide, please. Simon National Carriers is still owned by by the Simon family. This slide is a copy of our speed and road law infringement policy. Simon National Carriers recognises that the work that we undertake requires our vehicles and drivers to maintain compliance with the laws and regulations designed to increase road safety. Next slide, please. Mitigation of these risks associated with our activities is critical. Therefore, we restrict all of our company prime movers to 90 kilometres an hour using a speed restriction device. Now, I come across to Simons as part of an acquisition in 2007, and I was a little bit nervous about the 90 kilometre hour limit. It's amazing how it grows on you, and I still try and do half a dozen trips a year myself to keep my hand in. And it's amazing the effect that 90 kilometres an hour has on your fatigue. It's so much more relaxing to drive a little bit slower. And I think due to that lower speed limit in all our trucks, we attract a different type of driver. The gun-ho guys that want to go fast just don't apply. They all know the drill. Some people even say Simon stands for sucked in, mate, only 90. We equip appropriate company fleet with our Simon in-vehicle technology as a homemade system. We maintain vehicles and equipment to ensure accuracy of restriction and measurement devices. We provide an automated alert system for identifiable infringements. We ensure managers, allocators and all involved staff are accountable for the actions that may influence breaches. So it's no use just blaming the driver. We make sure that we always set them up to pass, not fail. We provide adequate resources to ensure the commitments can be safely met. And we investigate all infringements to identify contributing factors or opportunities for improvement. We operate on a 3 strikes in 12 months policy, or 16 kilometres an hour over a posted speed limit can lead to possible termination. Next slide, please. Our IVMS system creates valuable, easy to understand data for speeding analysis. It clearly identifies any breach of our speed management policy, but we also look at identifying high-risk behaviour as the main priority. For example, a driver might be constantly driving at a kilometre under the 105 limit, so flying under the radar, as you call it. Next slide, please. We believe that low speed zones are the highest risk. Our in-vehicle management system enables us to geofence areas around depots and a lot on our project jobs where we can set a predetermined speed, whatever we like. Sometimes that can be due to high personnel in the area, rough roads, whatever you like. It's a very easy function to set a geofence. The main focus, though, is to look for durations and patterns. So it's not about a specific event. It's looking for someone who's ignoring the buzzer that's going off at him, or looking for people that are constantly up there. Next slide, please. One of my favourite tools is our historical travel path. This tool allows us to monitor speed zones through towns, roadworks that have been set up recently. I put my line haul safety rep. He's a guy who does 1 day in the office per month. Apart from that, he's out on the road as a line haul driver. We use his knowledge, so he'll hop on and he'll check for any change speed zones, high risk areas where they're doing some night road work somewhere, and just make sure that the guys aren't speeding through them. Next slide, please. Importance of looking for the trend. We don't just manage the drivers who breach that policy. I mean, that's pretty clear cut. What we look for is to target the ones who are only just complying. So the example here, I've taken the names out of the drivers, but technically driver B, this is a month's worth of data. He hasn't breached our policy. If you look at just the sheer numbers there, he's up above the 100 all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot higher than everybody else. So he's going to get brought in so much in trouble.
Sean, if you can just sort of talk into your microphone a little bit again. Sorry, we just lost you for a second there, mate.
Sorry, is that better?
We've got you back.
That's better?
That's better. You're just talking about driver B and how he was sitting just below the limits consistently.
he was sitting just below the limits consistently. So we got him in and had a dog. We often use our safety reps, White Emerson. Wife's done 5.5 million kilometres accident and in thinking speed. So he's a good mentor to people like this. It's one thing for me to sit there and say to the guys how they should be driving, but to have someone
Sorry, Sean, can you just pull the microphone a little bit closer to your voice, please?
Is that better, Jerome?
Sorry, your hand might be over it a little bit and covering part of it.
Okay. Is that better?
That's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Sorry. Just touching on how we use White as a mentor to help change the behaviour of that. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry to cut in. This is Angela here. If our audience can just touch base with us and make sure that you're all hearing everything okay, that would be much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. Our next slide is in regards to the case study. We had a driver a couple of years ago who's been seen by police officers setting the posted speed limit by 16 kilometres per hour. According to our policy, this is something that's take someone's job away from them is a big thing. So investigated it thoroughly. In some investigation, the driver had come into a 60 kilometre hour zone, but only that day been reduced from an 80 zone. Due to our data, we could also establish that his behaviour was well out of character. We checked 12 months worth of data, and the particular driver had zero speeding zero speeding breaches. So nothing over a geofence in a depot, nothing over 100 at all. So therefore, look, we still cancelled him and he received some disciplinary action, but he didn't deserve to lose his job. As an industry, we need to manage these types of incidents, not just react. Telematics is a wonderful tool, but has to be managed appropriately. Next slide, please.
Just quickly, just on that, just for the audience who didn't quite understand that, I might have missed the beginning. Sean was just making the point then that they had one driver who sort of was caught because telematics was a change in speed limits, and it could have cost him his job at the very beginning based on their rules, and Sean went into bat for him, and that just for the scene setting at the very beginning. So, back to you, Sean.
Unfortunately, the industry has companies and individuals who knowingly break the law by speeding. This is a big problem for the industry. I've only on a plane last week and I heard that came off the red lights and the day and out really excessive speed. Really doesn't make us feel proud. We can manage the speed, but we need to target the industry perception of what is normal. Personally, I like to reduce speed with an aircraft that now. I know what the better doing. I think if we change...
Right, Sean, you have to talk a bit louder, mate.
I think if we change the perception of what is normal. As an example, I obtained my truck license at 17 in 1991. Due to my age, I was only given 4 points for 2 years. So that basically meant that I couldn't get an infringement for anything. I didn't think about it much at the time, but those restrictions that were placed on me early on led to my career of 18 years behind the wheel. I only ever lost the 1 demerit point. And I honestly believe because those strict rules were put in place to start with, it changed my behaviour right throughout my career. To change our whole industry's perception of normal, to change our whole industry's perception of the normal in regards to speeding, I believe is our industry's biggest challenge. Thank you, and I apologise for the technical glitch.
That's all right, mate. No worries at all. But thank you very much for that, Simon. We actually got quite an influx of questions then as well, we can now begin sort of delving into some of these now. So thank you very much. What we're going to do is I'll ask some of these sort of questions, fill it to the different sort of to Shane, Craig, and Sean, and if you can both sort of just add your bits to it, and we'll continue to move through them all. So just a nice sort of a simple one to begin with. How can you can be on a 100-kilometre zone and you can go past a ramp, and this can generate sort of reports that they're in a speeding zone, thinking they're in an 80k zone. This can generate some breaches. So we got that from Paul. What are your thoughts on that? Is this a common problem?
It's Shane speaking. It can be, and that's why I emphasised before that we validate the speeding breaches within the system. It may come up as, in some cases it won't come up as a breach in the truck of the vehicle, but if it comes back to the system as being a breach for that particular speed zone, we'll validate it using checking the system and validating the data before a driver's counselled or disciplined.
Thanks for that, Shane. Craig, Sean, do you guys have anything to add?
So again, it goes back to probably what Shane just said, is that you go back and analyse the events. If you analyse the events and it doesn't meet the parameters for a breach, then you have to reject it and put it down to a hardware or software issue within the system.
We had a good question.
Agree.
You agree, Sean?
I agree. I think what we try and do is centralise the investigation. So we only have the National Operations team that would investigate it. So you're not getting sort of operations staff and everyone who hasn't been trained as well in the system to identify false breaches.
Thank you very much. One other question. This sort of really draws on nicely what Sean was sort of saying earlier as well, and when he was talking about how do you really create that culture within an organisation from your own points versus sort of the proactive versus reactive sort of position in your organisations with your drivers. So, Sean, would you like to kick us off?
Look, we're a little bit unique here on the 90 where I do all the recruitment for as well, and we do get a different type of individual that applies. 90 kilometres out and sets the scene for how we manage this. I think we try and reward the behaviour. We're trying different ways at the moment how to reward that, like how to promote it. I think rather than discipline it all the time. Like if you can promote the good behaviour, everyone wants to get on board with it. But we're in the final details on how we're going to do that.
Thanks for that, mate. Shane, Craig, got anything to add?
No, not really.
I think for us, you know, it's a culture of doing the right thing and a culture of compliance. I have a conversation quite often with drivers, and I had the same conversation yesterday with a new driver, where we tell our drivers that we're paying them not to breach. You know, part of your job is not to breach. Part of your job is to be compliant all the time. When you take your money home every Thursday or Wednesday, part of that pay packet is for not breaching. So trying to drive that culture and that sort of way of looking at the task helps to get us some good outcomes.
From Shane, I think another point is that we try and emphasise at the company I'm with now, at Scott's and previous employers, that you try and emphasise that there's other people involved, not just the driver, family, kids. So any consequential effect is going to affect them as well. So penalties, fines, and heaven forbid, more serious than that. So it does affect everyone. So you need to emphasise that it has effect on others.
Thank you. Here's a great one. It's always a bit of a topical. Do you monitor speeding infringements that drivers may get from speed cameras, or are they only available to the driver? And do the drivers have to inform you if they get a speeding infringement? So how does it sort of reflect into your chain of responsibility angles? Craig, what do you think? So
for us, we treat them the same as any other breach that we get generated from the telematics system. So if a driver is caught for a red light camera, we'll know the trailer, we'll identify the trailer and the driver. The driver, they call it double dipping, but they will get a written warning and be on the disciplinary path for speeding in the truck. It's pretty straightforward for us.
For Shane, it's same at Scott's. It's if a driver is detected breaching speeds, the same emphasis as in Boral. Thanks.
One question. We have Sean? Yeah, we have the same sort of deal as the other two guys. If you're infringed in a heavy vehicle for anything, you'll cop a warning.
Right, well, I've also got you, Sean, there. I'll kick off with you the next one. I've got a good question here from the positive side. How do you reward drivers for good behaviours, such as good speed control? A question from Brian.
What we try and do every year, we take one of our drivers to the ATA convention. So, and a lot of drivers sort of look forward to the opportunity of going, and it's a little bit of a competition amongst them all.
Right.
Yeah, we're about to establish a driver reward system within Scott's. We haven't got one at the moment because it's that data and how you manage the data and how you record all of those good things that the drivers do. So we haven't got to that stage yet, but it's probably in the new year.
Craig?
I think we incorporate it into just our way of doing business. So we have reward and recognition programs throughout Boral, and so drivers will be recognised from time to time for different things. Again, the drivers are being paid to drive the trucks well. They do a good job, and so it might be, you know, identifying hazards is the monthly thing that we're looking at. It might be on-road behaviour, it might be other things. So it's incorporated into our general reward and recognition program.
And just before we kicked off the webinar, we were talking earlier, and just give everyone, Sean pointed out one of their drivers was it just over 5 million kilometres without a speed infringement. Was that correct, Sean?
Yes, that's right. 5.5 million Ks with no infringements or accidents at all.
Incredible figure. So, other sort of question now, I'd just like to say, how do you deal with GPS black spots? Shane?
Look, as an example, between Melbourne and Sydney, there's numerous black spots. Our systems record constantly, so even if there is a black spot within the route, the system will pick up and start transmitting that data once it's out of the black spot. So the data is never lost. It's always there. It's just it'll just take the next opportunity to be transmitted once it's out of that black spot.
Just sorry to jump in there, but it's normally not a GPS black spot. It's normally unless you're in the city or going through a tunnel, but normally on the roads it's actually telephony service providers that have the black spots. And so the GPS data is being recorded, and that's being captured inside the unit, but because there's a SIM card inside the units, and if it's in a black spot for not enough service towers or it's out of range, it'll just keep recording that GPS data. So the GPS information is still being recorded.
And Sean, you anything to add at all?
Yeah, all our units have a hard drive, so it just gets stored in the unit until it gets back into mobile range.
Right. We've actually had a couple of questions come through just asking a bit of detail about the telematics sort of system. So I'll start first with a bit of a culture sort of one from Nick. Was how long does it take for managers and drivers to embrace the telematics and then really start to take advantage of it? And now the second part of the question really is looking at and how do you know when you're sort of getting the cost benefit for it, when you know it's paying its way?
From Scott's, we introduced the system because at the time, way back when, it was the thing to do. But I think now, as we progressively go through the benefits of these systems, we can see the outcomes based on that being able to measure. As I said before, if you can't measure, you can't fix. So now that we can measure the breaches, where they're occurring, how they're occurring, the types of breaches, we can start creating initiatives to change those habits, and we can start geofencing, as was mentioned before. We can start plotting routes. We can look at critical zones, and we can actually start determining where the drivers are likely to speed. We can actually start understanding the route, where the difficult areas are going to be before they even get there. For example, we've even started plotting where we're hitting kangaroos, because kangaroos, believe it or not, do a bit of damage to a truck. So we actually can show you where the kangaroos are predominantly located, and we can then warn the drivers appropriately to take care. So these systems do give us vision of what the driver might see and what's on the road without being there. Yeah.
I was just sort of wondering, just drawing on that point, like you each have these telematics systems. Is there ever any sharing across telematics systems at all of where the high risk points are, so the whole industry as a whole can sort of be safer on the roads?
Short answer, no.
Thought I'd throw the curveball out there. And let me see, another one here. How can we correlate speed with remuneration, i.e. slow them down yet get paid for arriving safely? Another one from Ryan. Craig, do you want to kick off that one?
So I suppose it's up to the industry to recognise what their obligations are and manage those obligations, and it's up to the people that we're selling our services to make the reasonable inquiries and understand the benefits of having trucks on the road and drivers on the road that are in fit and proper condition to undertake the task. We're in a fortunate position where we're an integrated supply chain, and so it's not about going. If you're building into your costs speeding, and how long it takes to get somewhere, and the amount of fuel burn that you have, based on trucks going greater than the legal limit, then you're not going. You're in the wrong game. You're doing it the wrong way. So it's incumbent on the businesses to be able to demonstrate, so the transport businesses to be able to demonstrate how they comply, and use that as a service offering to their customers.
Sean, what are your thoughts?
What we try and do is once guys hit 90 kilometres an hour, we have a sliding scale, so if you use the service, the rate goes up. We also develop some drivers with 90 kilometres an hour.
Losing a little bit there, Sean.
Sorry, is that better?
I think so.
And just make sure the microphone isn't hiding there in your collar or...
It's a bit touchy.
Okay.
We try and develop the drivers with the benefits of 90 kilometres an hour pace and the other safety benefits for those guys. They appreciate, for example, on the East Coast we provide with a new lease month for free. It's all part of the 90 as they call it.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure, Shane.
I don't know if... I think the question is a valid question, but I don't know if in this group, in this period, that we can actually answer it, because there's a lot of other issues that are affected by that question about the rate for the journey, the type of load, the agreed rate in the contract. How can you go over and above that to reward a driver for being safe without affecting the margin that you've set within your contract? It does have a part to play. Yes, you want them to be safe, and you need to think of ways, hence the reason we're thinking of our reward and recognition system and our program, about how we can reward drivers for being safe and legally compliant. That doesn't have an impost on the benefits of that contract and that limit that you set.
We've probably got time for one or two questions.
Yeah, we'll take one more, and maybe if we pop it to the next slide so we can have all of our presented details, just so our wonderful audience can see once again who was here today.
And I guess got a good question here, and I guess it's the $1 million question, especially for these guys, is how do you determine which GPS provider to use?
Again, that's another difficult question. In my case, I didn't have a choice. I've inherited what we've got. So what I've tried to do is just improve what we've got, and again I'll put it out there. We use MT Data, free plug. It has its issues, as do the systems that we had when I was at Linfox and the systems I had when I was at Toll, the same systems at Finamores. They all have their inherent issues. So, and in a lot of cases, it's too expensive to take them out. They're in, and you just got to live with it. In our case, that we've just have a good relationship with our provider, and we try and make sure any issues that have come up with the system are addressed in an urgent matter.
Craig.
I'm fortunate enough to go and see a lot of our suppliers and go into their businesses and understand their telematics systems. And what I've seen over the last few years is convergent evolution. If you go and look and touch and feel most of the major service providers out there, they're all exactly the same. So to choose one will be based on your business needs, both the commercial sort of stuff on the left-hand side and the compliance sort of stuff on the right-hand side. See if it fits what you want, and then look at your budget. So it just depends on your business. But if you were to get 4 sales reps from 4 of the major telematics service providers, you would find that they look and feel and do basically the same thing these days. It wasn't the case 8 years ago or 5 years ago, but today it's becoming more and more the case.
Sean, do you have anything you want to add at all?
We've got a homemade system. We developed it ourselves with our IT department in Toowoomba. Sometimes I'd ask David if he'd do that again, and he gives me a funny look. But look, I think having the homemade does give us the opportunity just to ring our internal people when we want a change made. But yeah, look, whether it was the right thing to do, I don't know. But all the ones I have looked at outside ours, yeah, they're all pretty similar these days.
Thank you, guys. I guess the one last sort of question here I'd like to sort of just finish up with is tolerances. So Paul gave it to us quite early on. So do you sort of have greater allowances for tolerances, say overruns on hills or those sort of areas, or are your limits just set as they are? So.
Okay, Shane again.
Shane.
Our tolerances are, there's a couple of tolerances. There's the inbuilt tolerances within a system. Telematics have a tolerance, look, the techo people out there can tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but ours is around about the 3% mark, so hence the reason we've taken that 100 to 105, which gives us a bit of a tolerance before it registers as a breach. Any driver that, for 10 seconds I think it is, it will register an exception for that particular breach. And there's lots of other factors taken into account. The satellite links, number of satellites, and so on, as was mentioned before, they're all checked against each other. And if it's a borderline, then we'll just have a chat to the driver and nothing more will be said. But for those serious breaches, it's purely based on speed, satellites, the circumstances around the incident, and yeah.
And is there just drawing on that as well with tolerances, because we can try another little bit in here, is there a certain length of time as well?
In our case, the system, the actual MT data, will register a breach around 4 to 5 seconds over and above the speed.
Thank you very much. Craig?
So for us, in terms of drivers breaching, there's it doesn't matter if you're going off a hill, it doesn't matter if you're on the flat, it doesn't matter where you are. A breach is a breach. If you create a breach in the system, that's a breach. The driver's task, part of the driver's task is to control that truck to the speed limit. They've got from 0 to 100. It's not not the 99 and 100. They've got the whole gamut from 0 to 100 to manage that. So in short, no, it doesn't matter at all. There's no allowance given because it was going down a hill. Certainly not.
Thanks, Craig. And Sean, just to add a little bit more if you can, and then we'll be winding this up as we've hit out. We're just going over our time slot now.
Yes, we had the 2 tiers. So 110, we had no tolerance for that at all. But because of we manage everything from 105 upwards with the high-end stuff, there is a bit of, you've got to look at case by case and work it out. With the lower speed stuff, so in the geofences, look at each individual case and once again look for those durations. You know, if it's for 1 second, you know, you've got to look at that. But if it's for the whole panel keeps coming back to duration and the amount of time. If someone's doing 42 kilometres an hour in a 40 zone for 30 seconds, well, I think there's an issue.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Craig, Sean, and Shane, all for your time today and being willing to open up and talk about how your organisations manage the realities of speed. So thank you all very much, and I'll hand over now to Angela.
Thank you, Jerome, and thank you as well for jumping on board the moderator bandwagon. It was really nice to have a day off, I must say. And thank you to our wonderful audience members who sent through some very thought-provoking questions today and made for a very interesting discussion. So thank you so much, and I hope you can join us for future ARB and National Road Safety Partnership Program webinars in future.